Thank you very much. I hope everyone can be able to see the agenda in front of us. The agenda and program for virtual meeting of SADC PF. There is the agenda. The item that starts is credentials of delegates and apologies, which I will request the secretary of the committee, Kurasha, to deal with that.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, honorable members. Chair, I wish to confirm that we have a quorum to constitute the meeting, as we have received apologies only from Zambia and Seychelles. The rest of the membership are in the meeting. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The second item is the adoption of the agenda. I'm putting the agenda in front of the honorable members to get the secondment that this be the agenda that we use for the meeting of the committee. Honorable members.
Through the
Are
chair.
we in agreement? We must just do the.
Sure.
If we are in agreement, I think it's fine, because I can't see any contrary view. This will be the agenda that will follow for the committee. The item that follows is the welcome remarks. That will be done by myself. Honorable members of the SADC PF Standing Committee on Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources, the Secretary General of SADC PF, Ms. Huma, the Committee Secretary, Kurasha, Mr. Kurasha, who is also the Parliamentary Business Focal Person, and other staff from SADC PF Secretariat. Our distinguished resource persons, Ms. Chavuta, Southern African Humanitarian Advisor, Action Aid International, Mr. Joe Mzinga, Regional Coordinator, Eastern and Southern Africa Small Scale Farmers Forum, Titus Gwemende, Southern Africa Regional Lead Natural Resources, Oxfam International. Our distinguished participants and ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor to welcome honorable members to the meeting of SADC PF Standing Committee on Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources, which is taking place virtually for the first time in the history of this forum. It's the first time that we're having a virtual meeting. We are meeting under the theme, the impact of COVID-19 on the food security and natural resource governance in Southern Africa. What can we do as Parliament, or what Parliament can do? We are meeting under a very unusual situation when the entire global economy and society have been significantly disrupted by COVID-19 inspired restrictions. This, honorable members, has resulted in mass production shutdown, supply chain disruptions, and drastic reduction in demand across all sectors of global economy. The lockdowns, curfews, closures, markets and mines, restriction on cross-border movements and movement restriction measures, while necessary for public health and safety concern, have disrupted the functioning of agriculture and extractive sectors, with serious ramifications on current and future production capacities. Honorable members, in the agricultural sector, the COVID-19 crisis has caused severe disruption on food supply chain distribution networks. This is having a compound effect on the facets of food security, including food production, safety, and distribution, which in turn has drastically increased the SADC region food security challenges. The resultant lack of access to sufficient nutrition food will lead to health problems, including undernourishment, immune deficiencies, stunting, illness, and high child mortality rates in our region. COVID-19 has left over 40 million people in SADC region facing acute food insecurity, hunger, and poverty. This is against a situation where more than 17 million people in 5 SADC member states, namely Malawi, Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, were already food insecure before COVID due to last year's drought, which saw food prices rising to a 5-year high according to the World Food Programme. We were already in crisis before the COVID arrived. So the coronavirus pandemic has aggravated the vulnerability of citizens of this region, 40% of whom were already living in extreme poverty as countries grappled with climate shocks, energy deficit, rising debt levels, acute food and water insecurity, high chronic malnutrition, livestock disease, and crop destruction caused by dry spells and flash floods. It is evident, honorable members, that for SADC region and COVID-19 crisis is not only a public health issue, but is equally a food security matter, since the restriction on movement within and across the borders have slowed food systems and impacted supply chains. Many people have also lost their jobs, and the rising food prices means more people will go hungry in our region. Small-scale farmers in particular have raised concern about not being able to move around to look for markets, procure inputs like seeds and fertilizers for winter cropping, and to interact with agricultural extension officers. The disparate situation is pushing many smallholder farmers to adopt negative coping mechanisms such as selling productive assets to survive. Honorable members, in view of the impact of COVID on the agricultural sector and the impact of food security, we are duty-bound as parliamentarians to call on governments and donors to urgently intervene and help the vulnerable households in our region. Our governments should consider rolling out multi-purpose cash transfer grants to help vulnerable families, small-scale farmers to buy food, seeds, and fertilizers to grow again. In addition, honorable members, targeted measures such as resilience to buffer the ever-increasing climatic shock needs to be given a priority. As we battle the impact of COVID on food security, we need to ensure that national and SADC grain reserves are expanded and strengthened, and food processing and storage facilities are brought closer to farms. The pandemic also provides the region with an opportunity to interrogate the current intensive industrial model of agriculture being supported across the region, which has so far failed to significantly improve food security for our region. We need to move towards agroecology and supporting the capacity of local farmers to produce food for their communities. Honorable members and distinguished participants, when we look at the impact of COVID on extractive sector, we see the prices of crude oil have drastically tumbled, which means significant loss of revenue. Mining companies have not been spared either. The social distancing measures have resulted in projects slowing down or being put on hold entirely, while fluctuating in commodity prices and slowdown in global economy have resulted in downward spiral of shares of listed mining companies. Oil exporting nations are estimated to lose over 65 billion US dollars in revenues as crude oil prices tumble dramatically, according to the recent report by Economic Commission of Africa. Mining companies have not escaped the global impact of COVID pandemic either. For instance, global social distancing measures have seen projects slowing down or being put on hold. Similarly, fluctuating prices of commodities and uncertain global economy have seen share prices of listed mining companies head into a downward spiral. COVID pandemic, honorable members, has exposed the weak points in global labor market. With up to 305 million full-time workers in all economic sectors at risk of losing their jobs in the second quarter of 2020. The global mine sites are temporarily closing to protect workers and safety, and employees are being laid off. Supply chains are slowing and halting production entirely, and impact of this pandemic on employment is in mining and general government tax revenue cannot be understated, and government must act to foster resilient job market and protect their communities' livelihoods. The multifaceted impact of COVID-19 on agriculture and extractive sectors, honorable members, requires an equally robust and multi-layered response from our region. It is important to note that COVID-19 crisis came already existing challenges we were facing as a region. Inherent structural weaknesses of our government are now being laid bare as member states grapple with unfolding health and economic crisis. It is clear that we need to take advantage of COVID crisis to rethink the design of institutions to make up state and development models, not just as SADC, but the entire African continent. The crisis also brings to fore the important role of watchdog and oversight institution led by parliaments. More than ever before, parliaments must use their constitutional mandate of lawmaking oversight of the use of public funds and representational roles to ensure governments effectively and accountably implement appropriate intervention to mitigate the food security and job losses, loss of revenue and poverty levels. We are going to interrogate these critical questions over the next 2 days in line with the mandate and clear policy resolution and recommendations to the plenary assembly. We are grateful to our resource persons who have accepted to come and engage the committee during this session. It is now my honor and privilege to declare the meeting of Standing Committee on Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources officially opened. I thank you very much. Thank you very much, honorable members. We can now move to the next item on the agenda, which I will call upon Ms. Chikondi Chivuta to present. Before that, honorable members, consideration of the minutes and matters arising from the meeting of the committee held on Wednesday, 31 October 2019 at Premier Hotel in South Africa, and matter arising. I hope honorable members have received the minutes. The minutes has got 9 pages. Do we have minutes, honorable members? The minutes have got 9 pages. I will go page by page just to confirm. I see Honorable Carlos Manuel. You can unmute your mic.
Sim, boa tarde. Primeiro pedir as minhas sinceras desculpas por ter entrado um pouco tarde. Não irei me cingir sobre a apreciação, segundo o senhor presidente acabou agora de dizer, sobre a sessão passada. Irei mesmo apresentar uma breve apresentação. Eu chamo-me Carlos Manuel, sou deputado da Assembleia da República de Moçambique, membro do Grupo Nacional junto ao Foro Parlamentar da SADC e vice-relator da Comissão do Plano e Orçamento, da minha República, para além de ser membro desta comissão, sou presidente. Permita-me que enderece a minha satisfação por participar pela primeira vez nesta comissão, da qual sou membro, e gostaria, desde já, solicitar, senhor presidente, o vosso apoio e de todos os colegas membros desta comissão. Muito obrigado, senhor presidente.
Thank you very much, Gurasha. I don't know whether the interpretation is working there. Gurasha, are you there?
Yes, Chair. What honorable members need to do is to go on the interpretation below, on the panel below the screen. You should have to choose the language which you prefer under interpretation. So if you select
yes.
French, Portuguese, you will then be able to hear when the member speaks.
No. Thank you very much. So it means I have missed the whole presentation by Honorable Manuel.
Chair, may I propose that the chair invites Honorable Carlos to speak again so that he will be able to hear.
Honorable Carlos, you can come back again so that we can hear.
Sim. Boa tarde, muito obrigado. Estava a dizer, meu nome é Carlos Manuel. Pedia eu desculpas por ter entrado um pouco tarde para esta sessão, por razões óbvias. Dizia que chamo-me Carlos Manuel, sou deputado da Assembleia da República de Moçambique, membro do Grupo Nacional junto ao Foro Parlamentar da SADC e vice-relator da Comissão do Plano e Orçamento cá do meu país, para além de ser membro desta comissão que agora participo do Foro Parlamentar da SADC. Dizia eu que estava muito satisfeito por participar pela primeira vez nesta comissão, da qual sou membro, passe a repetição, e gostaria de solicitar o apoio do senhor presidente, bem como dos colegas membros desta comissão. Foi exatamente isso que eu, na primeira parte, explanei, reservando a segunda parte, se permitir, para fazer uma pequena intervenção. Muito obrigado, senhor presidente.
Okay, thank you very much. The discussions, we'll put them when we go to discussions, Honorable Carlos. Whatever interventions you want to make, you will do it when we go to the deliberations by committee members. We just want now to first deal with the consideration of the minutes of the previous meeting, and then presentations. There is a space for deliberations by committee members, where we'll give you an opportunity to make a presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable members.
Obrigado, Sr. Presidente.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Honorable members, we are going to the minutes. The minutes, Kurasha, you can confirm whether members have received the minutes on time, so that we don't, so that they can indicate if there are any areas where they want to make corrections. Kurasha?
Chair, I wish to confirm that minutes were received well on time. We send minutes through various channels, including on the group, but also through desk officers. Chair, the second issue I wish to raise through the chair is also that in considering the minutes, may we do so item by item, as the pagination could be different in the different languages.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. Thank you very much. We are, the first item on the minutes is present, the members that were present, if there is any correction. The second one is apologies. And the third one, in attendance. I'm moving quick because I assume that members have gone through the minutes. Agenda. Welcoming remarks. Consideration of the minutes and matters arising from the meeting of Standing Committee on FNR held on 23rd May 2019 at Premier Hotel OR Tambo, Johannesburg, South Africa. Strengthening social accountability and oversight in health and agriculture in Southern Africa. The importance of agriculture and food security in the SADC region. Conclusion and resolutions. Promoting climate change resilience in SADC. Conclusion and resolutions. And lastly, conclusion. Those are the minutes of the previous meeting. We are presenting them for adoption. I move for the adoption of the minutes so that we can deal with matters arising. I move, honorable members.
So we have the seconder through the chair.
Can we have somebody seconding?
Chair, I had raised my hand, but I moved to second, Chair.
Okay, it's Honorable
Musena, Lesotho.
Honorable Musina Lesotho second. Do we have any matters arising? Is seconded. Do we have any objection? I hope none. Matters arising? Any matters arising from the minutes? There are no matters arising. It means the conclusions and resolutions as put forward in the minutes, we are adopting that as such.
Can I interject, Chair?
Yes, Honorable Musina.
Yes, Chair. I think on the matters arising, maybe we would be guided by the Secretariat if there are any involvements since the last meeting on the resolutions, etc.
Okay. Yes, I was going to Russia to check if there are any matters.
Thank you very much, Chair. As part of the resolutions made by the committee, the continuation in terms of briefing of the committee regarding Malawi is part of the resolutions of the committee. The other issue that is also important to raise under matters arising, and it's a matter that the SG will brief the committee on, is that the former secretary of the committee, Mr. Panika Rombe, has left the forum, and I've been tasked to service the committee in the interim.
Okay. Yeah, those are the matters arising. Part of the issues that we raised in the last meeting have been included in the discussion that we're going to have in the committee. I will allow the Secretary General, Ms. Sukuma, to also have something to say.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon, honorable members. Indeed, the committee clerk is no longer with the forum. He, however, has left very comprehensive notes on the work that he was doing in terms of operationalizing the resolution, some of the resolutions with strategic stakeholders of the committee. Currently, we do have Mr. Shorin Kurasha, who's stepping in to service the committee. We have also requested parliaments for secondment, and I'm expecting a letter from one of our parliaments who have already designated a committee clerk who will be attached to this committee for the next 2 years. Regarding some of the resolutions that have been highlighted by the committee secretary, is that there was an activity on oversight of the agriculture and the health sector, where a proposal was put together under social accountability with Action Aid. This proposal actually was successful, and there were pledges to ensure that a few activities take place with this particular component of the activity for this committee. However, due to COVID, both organizations have agreed to review the MOU, review the onboarding process, and relook at the budget to ensure that we're able to indeed carry out this activity. This is mainly because the donor who's finding Action Aid also required them to indicate how the COVID situation is affecting the implementation of that project and programs. We also had an activity under GIZ where there was intention to track SADC protocols and commitments related to agriculture. This activity should take place as it is provided for under joint financing with the GIZ and Austria Development Assistant. There was also ongoing discussions with Oxfam on mining and the extractive industry. Members will recall that it's been about 2.5 years where the committee started a process of developing a model law on mining. Due to resource constraint, this has not taken off and is yet to take off depending on some discussions with some key partners. In the process of trying to operationalize this particular activity, the committee clerk did indicate then that the interest seems to have shifted from partners because we already have the mining vision and there's been development that is happening, and the interest seems to be directing him to another set of new areas that he should look into. And this is where this activity was left off. There was also discussions around environmental governance and climate change, which were to take off, but this was yet to be packaged and developed into a more bankable proposal or activities that are clear that this committee could actually implement. We also had activities around SADC energy and renewable energy sector with RERA. And this is another area which was yet to be exploited, packaged, and a bankable proposal developed. There was also issues around transboundary water and governance, which are yet to be operationalized. The committee may wish to note that under the proposal with Austria Aid, the grant provides for the attendance of council summit meetings related to the transformation agenda. There's also provision for a commission of a SADC-wide study on challenges that women face in running for political office, which I believe that the agricultural sector can find 2 or 3 questions that could be included in this particular SADC-wide study, especially now that we're looking at COVID and we are mostly looking at how our own countries can be self-sustaining in this regard. I believe that the other activities are still yet to be really looked at, threshed out, packaged, and resubmitted for operationalization to this particular committee. And some areas around ICT that will inform the whole process of the model law will be looked at to see whether or not we cannot be able to start off at least initial phase of a concept note that should inform a position paper or a blue paper, or they call it a green paper in some countries, to allow us to interest partners who are already involved within the regional mining vision or any other activities that could assist this particular committee. Allow me also, Chair, to indicate that the plenary assembly session theme was around the issue of land governance and the role of Parliament, which I believe that this is quite critical for this particular committee. The issue of land, food are intertwined, and I think it's something that the committee can look at seriously in terms of how they pitch or contribute to this particular debate during the upcoming symposium for the committee. I thank you, Chairperson. This should give a status report and put in context why some of the resolutions that were submitted to the plenary assembly are still in development and require some attention in due course. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I think you have given us a very comprehensive response in terms of matters arising. I don't know if there is still any member who wants to ask something. Okay, I think we are fine. We can then move to the next item on the agenda, which is the impact of COVID on food security in the SADC region, which will be presented by Ms. Chikondi Chavuta, Southern African Humanitarian Advisor, Action Aid International. We welcome you, ma'am. The platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thanks everybody for this opportunity. I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. As we are aware, ActionAid is a human rights organization, but also a social justice movement that works on different issues, from women's rights, food, right to food, and also several aspects of advocacy that we're involved in. And we are quite delighted to be given this opportunity to share a bit of background and the work that we have done over the few months concerning the food crisis that is affecting the region. So as we are aware, the communities in Southern Africa are continually being faced by natural hazards. And in the past 5 years alone, we've had the El Nino that hit parts of Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe Then we had erratic rains, which led to low harvest. Then last year, at the beginning, we had Cyclone Idai hit Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. Then Cyclone Kenneth hitting also parts of Mozambique and Malawi. If that was not enough, we were having a drought season from countries in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, and others as well. And just early this year, we have been hit by flash flooding being reported in Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Mozambique. That on top was being followed by the 4 armyworm infestation that caused havoc in the region and has caused destruction to any crop that was being put in the field for recovery. And it has led to loss year in, year out. And as the chair was sharing at the beginning, with the coming in of COVID, the situation of the food has gone worse with time. So we have seen that women and children are the ones that are being most impacted. We have seen rising levels of malnutrition in children in the region. And with the closing of schools, some children who were getting food rations at schools have also been left with no option of these nutrition meals at the schools, and levels of malnutrition are going down. The disasters that we are facing in the region are mostly attributed to climate change, which has caused all these and is still causing havoc within the region, and unpredictable weather and rain patterns. Communities that were hit by Cyclone Idai were in and are still in recovery mode from the damage that this cyclone posed on these countries. And then early this year, they were hit by flooding. But then from October last year, during the lean season, they were also being faced with the drought period. So it's been one thing after another. And the harvests for this year, we are yet to get the crop estimates from each country, but the yield has been reduced. And with the reduced yield and the impact of the crisis on the communities, we have seen that even with the little yield that was realized, most of this has been sold off to offset some of the basic needs that were needed, but also to offset some of the loans that were accrued to procure inputs for the farming season. We are seeing that with this trend, we might have the food crisis with us, at least for the next year or two, before we come to a situation where there's stability. And with COVID-19, we are not sure when restrictions might be fully released and have borders opened. We are seeing that with the border closures, issues of supply are also being impacting the food availability and access in countries that are that rely on importations from South Africa. And this situation is really deteriorating in the countries of Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Malawi, just to mention a few. Now, as I've mentioned before, the communities are in recovery mode and are continuously being pushed to response phase, because as we are trying to move to recovery with different interventions from different stakeholders and different governments, our communities end up going back to a response phase due to the high vulnerabilities that they have. And also this is making them more susceptible to any shocks, including the COVID-19 situation. With the international framework on checking the crisis level of food security, we are seeing that most people are in IPC phase 3, which is a crisis phase, But then we have seen communities in Zambia and Zimbabwe being in emergency phase of the food security situation. However, we are basing our figures on the 2019 figures, and we are aware that the figures will be different now with more assessments going on. And then also there's a refresher IPC classification that is about to be released soon. So just to give a picture, for Malawi, we're seeing that about 0.21% of its population is in emergency phase. And in Mozambique, it's about 0.64. And in Zambia, it's 2.4, while in Zimbabwe, about 7% of the population are in the emergency phase. And this is borderline close to famine. And malnutrition levels, I've just picked the indicator of stunting just to look at how it is in the region. And we're seeing that in Malawi, we have about 39% stunting levels. In Mozambique, 43%, in Zambia, 40%, and in Zimbabwe, 31%. Of course, we should all be aware that this data is underreported, and also with the COVID situation, new ways of data collection are being checked within countries to see how they can update the figures. But we are seeing that if the situation is left as it is, they're at a brink of famine. But we'll wait for the new data to capture the most current trends as of now. So these are the number of people that we are anticipating to support just as ActionAid. And then this is to complement the government efforts. In Malawi, we are about to want to support 15,000 people. In Mozambique, 49,000 people. In Zambia, 171,755. And in Zimbabwe, about 127,500 people within the next 3 to 6 months before we go into the lean period, but also before. This is based on the current data that we have. Just a few of the case studies that we have. This is Emery Kachingwe from Palombe in Malawi. And when we checked with her, she's saying that as she's seeing the hunger will continue beyond the season, and she needs more support to sustain herself and her grandchildren. And this is what is being seen across the region. So as ActionAid, we are focused on 4 areas. So 1 on women's protection, on accountability, and also looking at resilience, but also trying to ensure that the local organizations are the ones that are championing the response, and they're the ones that are leading, and we are just supporting them to meet the needs of the community. With women's protection, some of the issues that we have seen and the impact that the food situation is bringing is there's been a rise in sexual exploitation when there's been a search for food by women. This is within countries, but across borders as women are in search for food. There's been increased levels of unpaid care work, especially with also the closures of school and also the repatriations that are happening. There's more burden on women to sustain the households. There's issue of loss of dignity as rights are being compromised due to a lack of food, and subsequently there's no food choice in that respect. And then there's also increased domestic violence at the household level due to lack of food and the stresses this causes on the household level, coupled with the restrictions that are there in some contexts where the restrictions are higher than others. There's also issue of lack of rights to information, as women and men do not know the link between climate crisis and its links to increased food insecurity. In many cases, we have seen that people think the food insecurity is a punishment from God. And it is really important for us and also the governments to work on ensuring that the communities are aware that this is not really a punishment, but this is a climatic issue. And these are the impacts of several years of degradation that has been caused to our planet. With the food crisis and with the current context as well, access to markets is a challenge with COVID-19, and the chair also alluded to this in his introductory remarks. Issues of storage facilities for produce is an issue that is being seen as well for the communities, but also with more and more job losses happening, availability of money to buy food and support their own needs at household level have created this burden, and there's less options available for the communities and household level to procure food. We still have the four-army worm within the fields, and this is a challenge. This time around, most of the communities would be engaged in winter cropping, and with the four-army worm attacking the little available inputs that they have, it is still posing a challenge on how they progress on their cropping seasons. In some context, we are seeing that now with COVID-19, which caught us more unawares, there's more priority to prevent this further spread of this virus amongst the communities, which should be commended. But then there's more priority on that, leaving the food crisis at the back burner, and there's less and less attention being received on the crisis. So what are we suggesting? I'll just provide a few suggestions, and my colleague Joe will add more on that. In the short term, we're saying that there should be social protection programs. This should be able to provide the much needed cash for, so we have cash transfer programs that could be further financed by the governments to provide food in the short term for the communities and for the household. In the medium term, and also looking further, would like to reiterate that we need to move to agroecology so that we have more resilient food systems, because our current food system has been challenged with the multi-crisis that we are affected, but also with COVID-19. Then the other thing that we would want to recommend is we need to work with local women's groups to promote and advocate for accountability in all the response work. We have seen that when women are the ones that are in charge of food distributions, either provided by government or any other stakeholder, there's less corruption, fraud, but also it gets to those who really need it. This has been proven over time over the countries that we are present in. And then we are also proposing a regional approach to building transformative resilience. So we are saying that resilience should not only be seen in the agriculture sector, but in all development work that we are involved in. There should be that resilience angle so that we are more prepared to emergencies and more prepared to any other shocks that we might be impacted with climate change with us to stay. We need to have community-led preparedness and response plans that are funded by the local councils to ensure that the communities have a voice and their issues are taken forward and are approved in the national budgets. Another thing is we would want parliaments to ensure that social accountability is upheld in the use of public funds earmarked for relief efforts, even earmarked for the food crisis. There is a likelihood that going forward, all governments in the region will be dealing with austerity budgets because COVID-19 has really shocked the economies, and that we cannot ignore. And this will likely affect the investment in the agricultural services for smallholder farmers. So we are recommending that with the little budget availability that countries have, there is need for investment in smallholder farmer priorities, ensuring that their needs are prioritized to really get out of the loop of shocks that we're in. So this is another case study just to wrap up my presentation. This is Wimbisai from Zimbabwe, who's saying in normal years she would sell her maize and use the money to pay school fees for her children. Now she's only able to produce enough for just her meals, and she's struggling to pay for school fees. And with the persistent drought, the soils are unable to grow crops. This is why we are proposing agroecology in the longer term and even in the medium term. And this is the last example that I'm going to share of how this is impacting communities in the Southern Africa. This is the Stelhoa from Malawi. She's yet to recover from the destruction of Cyclone Idai as we speak. And she cannot afford to feed her grandchildren because she does not have enough food. She does not have enough harvest from the field with the many years that she's been exposed to these shocks. So the situation is real, and honorable members, I'm aware that you are aware of the situation, and we are here as ActionAid to support efforts that government would put in place to ensure that we come out of this cycle of food insecurity and come out better, even with the shocks that are coming left, right, and center, destabilizing our economies and our plans. I will leave now to Joe to continue with the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shivuta. Thank you very much for the presentation. I hope members, honorable members, are taking notes. Yeah, I like the clapping of hands by the SG. The on reactions there are signs which indicates that you are clapping hands. You can just put it and clap hands. Thank you very much, Mr. Joe Mzinga.
Apologies if you can hear the echo because I'm standing by with another gadget in case of power cut.
Okay.
All my colleagues could take over. First of all, we appreciate the opportunity to share. And I think this is not the first time. We have been together several times during the so-called budget summits that are organized by civil society, particularly the PSA consortium. But also we have been in the meeting that was held in October 2019 in Johannesburg, where we did a presentation also on Malabo and also on climate change. So without wasting much time, I recall that you have already a resolution in Malabo, which is a step forward by the SADC PF. But also, we are glad that the General Secretary have presented some of the measures that are ongoing in terms of partnership. Now, I'm doing this presentation as a member of the PSA, which the General Secretary talked about. And this is a consortium of many organizations, about 5. We have ActionAid, we have SAFAID, we have PSAM, and also we have ESAF, which I'm working with. This is a smallholder farm organizations based working in all 16 countries, and we're based in Morogoro in the United Republic of Tanzania. So I'll be presenting more in terms of the agricultural sector and the performance of the biannual review report of the Malabo, as you all know. That came out this February, but it's focusing on the year 2019. So I think the question, looking at the pandemic now and everything that's coming out, really have exposed our system. And we know Southern Africa has always been hungry. And then we were wondering, we have a lot of rivers, we have a lot of water bodies, we have a long, I think, strip of coastal line in west and in east, and we are still hungry. So those are the biggest question that we'll be asking ourselves moving forward. But looking at the study that was done by FAO and UN in terms of agriculture sector and the capacity to alleviate poverty is saying agriculture sector has the capacity to alleviate poverty almost 11 times more than any other sector, including gas, oil, and also mining and the services. So there is a need to focus on agriculture moving forward. So why agriculture is important again, 50% of the population in SADC live below poverty line. This according to the study of 2020, but also 16 considered to be extremely poor in the region. And the majority are in the agriculture sector in the rural areas. So we can see the importance of really focusing on the agriculture sector. As my colleague said, in some countries, you saw the level of stunting, more than 30%. That's shocking. It means that which kind of generation that we're preparing, and all this we need to focus on agriculture moving forward. And the recent studies are showing that we have 45 million people which are facing severe food insecurity. And now this is the number. Imagine 45 million people. In the normal situation in SADC, you can find around 30 million people all have severe food insecurity. So the outline of the presentation, I'll focus a little bit on the SADC in terms of membership, population, poverty, hunger, and GDP, but also looking now at the performance of the Malabo 2019 compared to 2017. And lastly, conclusions and recommendations. We have about 7 recommendations, and some of them, they have come from the previous presentation by Chikonde, which was a fantastic presentation. We have 16 members now after the Comoros, and we're about 350 million people by 2018. And majority, the populous nations, we have DRC, which is 24%, RCA and the United Republic of Tanzania, almost 16%. So it's a huge market. It's a huge market for food, and it's a huge market for everything. And luckily enough, we are importing a lot of fish from China, importing a lot of rice from Pakistan and also Vietnam, but also in terms of wheat, a lot of wheat that are coming from Russia and France. So, but we still can produce all those things if we focus on agriculture. The GDP is 607 billion USD. Unfortunately, about half of it is only coming from South Africa. Our exports is about 190,000, 585 million by 2018. But our trade, look at our trade, we are still at 376,000 million USD. And we are still trading not at that level, the high level. I think we are around 13, 15% in the region. So we need also to focus on intra-regional. And agriculture is constituting about 20% of the SADC regional GDP. So we can see how agriculture is important moving forward, while 70% are living on or relying on agriculture. I can't focus very much on this slide because Chikonde has already talked, but just see the figures. Malawi, 3.3 million people in hunger, Zambia, 2.3 million, and Zimbabwe, 3.9. This is really shocking. And if we look at the stunting and acute malnutrition, we have almost 70% below the 5% threshold. Mozambique, Zambia also are in the list, including Madagascar as well. Poverty is between 6 to 77, as I said before. And also in terms of stunting, you can see the percentages there. Mozambique, 47, Tanzania, 31%, Zambia, 34%, Malawi, 33%. The percentage, but you can say that in 100 people, 30% are children are stunted. So it's a shocking really moving forward. Also DRC is around 40%. In terms of the policies that are in place, We have the RISDIP, I think you all know, the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan of 2015-2020 is coming to an end this year, and the review has been done. And the representative of the people, I think you also need to know what are the outcome of the RISDIP. So we are going to have a new RISDIP starting from this year to 2030. And the priority is on industry development, market integration. But also I'm told that agriculture might be one among the priority A, because agriculture was not in the priority. It was in priority D on other special programs. And we have, within the SADC, we have the so-called SADC Regional Agriculture Policy that came out in 2016. And we have the Regional Agriculture Investment Plan that is not really yet implemented, and that is the biggest challenge. But overall, we have the SADC Development Fund. And the SADC Development Fund, we would have loved to see it operational to support the development of the agriculture sector. But only 7 member states have signed so far. And countries were supposed to deposit about 120 million shillings. So very few countries have already, I think none have put in place the mechanism, the funding in terms of operationalizing. But we see a few countries have already signed: Angola, DRC, Lesotho, but also Mozambique, Eswatini, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. But we expected that money will be deposited on the operationalization of the same, the SADC Development Fund, which could also catalyze in terms of the Agriculture Development Fund. So basically the presentation now will focus on the 7 Malabo goals. As you can see there, there are 7 approved 2014. And all SADC members are working in terms of the domestication of the same, but at a different pace, and the pace is very slow. And we would love all countries to domesticate the Malabo in line with the National Agriculture Investment Plan. We have 7 goals, and the first report came out in 2018, and the second came out this February 2020. We were better in 2018, but not in 2019. Far, far below, because no single country is on track. Now, these are the goals. I think you all know all of them. Number 1 is commitment on the SADC principles. Number 2 is upholding on the 20%, and come out with the Agriculture Investment Bank, committing to ending hunger and malnutrition by 2025. Number 4 is to reduce poverty by half by growing the sector by 6%. None of the SADC countries is growing the sector by 6%, except I think Angola. Then it triple intra-regional trade. We are still at almost 13%, very below. And enhancing resilience. Chikondi talked about resilience. Very few countries are putting the budget on climate variability and other shocks. I think it's only Madagascar. And then no, not Madagascar, Mauritius, sorry. And then commitment to mutual accountability and result for action. So those are the 7 goals, and where we are assessed as countries in every 2 years. As I said, the first one we did quite very well, but the second one we didn't do well. So I think there is a problem with my slides. But according to the, I think this is the report by 2019, is only 4 countries in Africa that's on track. Number 1 is Rwanda with 70.24%. Morocco is second one, and Mali is third with 6.82. And again, then Ghana is 6.67. So these are the only 3 countries that are on track, according to the biannual review reports on Malabo. So in Eastern and Southern Africa, we have only Rwanda, which is number 1. Maybe we need to study and understand why Rwanda is number 1. It was number 1 in the previous, but also is number 1 in the second. So how are we performing so far in the second biannual review report? This is the first biannual review report for SADC. You can see the red Tanzania, DRC, Zambia, Angola on the west, and then you can. Pardon? Yes, and also I think that is Zimbabwe or Botswana. I think it's Zimbabwe. Yes, they are red, and the green ones are the ones that did quite well in the SADC countries. So about half, they did quite well, but not for the 2019. So by 2017, the report said 8 countries were on track. They scored about 3.9 because that was the minimum. And then the 7 countries were off target: Lesotho, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Madagascar, Tanzania, Angola, and DRC. And those are the countries that did well: Mauritius, Malawi, Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Seychelles, and Eswatini. So this is the pictorial. You can see the way how we are performing. We performed in 2017. You can see the cutoff line here of 3 points. You can see the reds on the right, and on the left, we see the those who are on track, as I said before. Now, 2019, this is the performance. Mauritius is leading with 5.9, almost like 6. Then Zambia, number 2, Tanzania, number 3, with 5.8, all the way to South Africa, which is having 2.88. And the Comoros, which did not report. So that is the general picture of how SADC performed in 2019. I don't know, maybe the countries relaxed a little bit. That's why in 2019, we are even behind. So look what we are on red. No country is on track. No countries is above the 6.6 mark. So there is something should be done as far as agriculture is concerned on the 7 goals. Particular number 2, investment in the agriculture sector. And then number 3 in terms of growing agriculture to about 6% annually, because that is expected to spur development. And once you spur development in the agriculture sector, because the majority of the people depend on agriculture, it means crop, livestock, fisheries, and forestry. Definitely, everything will go up in the region. But this is the whole spectrum as far as our performance. If you look on the right here, you can see we are not on track on each and everything. Maybe on few areas that we're on track, as you will see in the following slides. So on commitment number 1 in terms of allocating, Malawi was allocating quite a lot on the agriculture sector, as well as Zambia. I think in 2017, it was top with about 15%, but it has gone down, Zambia as well. But however, despite the allocation, I think most of the performance in the agriculture sector were negative. Negative 2.3, that was an average for Malawi in the previous report. But for Zambia, I was looking this year has gone to negative 21. I was wondering why Zambia agriculture growth have gone to negative 21. And then number 2, in terms of goal number 3, in ending hunger, we have 3 countries that are on track to end hunger by 2025. Mauritius, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, and Seychelles. Doing quite okay. But in terms of having poverty, to have half of the people out of poverty, is only Angola that is said to be on track because of the growth of the sector is on about 6%. So the only country that is doing quite well in terms of having poverty. In terms of commitment number 6, resilience on climate change, only Seychelles is doing well in the SADC countries. I think they are putting budgets on climate resilience to support smallholder farmers in other communities. No country is allocating a budget on climate issues to support smallholder farmers is per the Malabo goal number 6. But also if we look at the, in terms of investment on research to at least 1%, is only Angola, Madagascar, Mauritius, and Seychelles are investing more, about 1% and above in the agriculture sector. All the other 14 countries are not investing in the agriculture research. So the other standing we have already spoken about them. So what were the recommendations from the AUC? This is just copy paste from the AUC. Recommendation number 1 is increase access to agriculture input and technology. And you could see the way how we're investing in ARD, quite minimal, just 4 countries. Then number 2 is strengthening agricultural data. And you can see there is a shame that SADC, a regional like this one, most of the data coming from either World Bank, IMF, and now coming from the AUC. I think we need to strengthen our data collection as well. Number 3 is increase quality and quantity of investment and improve and sustain the performance of the agriculture sector to end hunger and poverty reduction. Because as I said, agriculture is the key in most of the countries. Probably not very much for South Africa, and probably Botswana a little bit, but most of the countries really depending on agriculture, particularly on food, employment, and the exports. Number 4, member should domesticate the Malabo Declaration and target into their National Agriculture Investment Plan. So many countries, they have not yet domesticated. Zambia is on the process. Madagascar did, but also Tanzania did as well. The other countries are lagging behind as far as the domestication of the Malabo. And then increase investments in resilience. This is a big challenge, as Chikondi talked about. We need really to invest on resilience and agriculture that is more sustainable. I'm about to end now with the proposed 7 key issues to enhance oversight in the agriculture and food security. Let me say that we need to see the Agriculture Development Fund operationalized. If we can't work on the Agriculture Development Fund, at least let me talk of the SADC Development Fund to start with. Since 2017, it was agreed, passed by the council, but is not yet operational. That's why the Regional Agriculture Investment Plan is not yet fully operational. It's just being operationalized portion by portion. We need also to see the completion of the National Agriculture Investment Plan. Then we need to see the rapid pace as far as the domestication and implementation of key policies. The Dar es Salaam Declaration that came out of the Malabo, this was the SADC first blueprint as far as agriculture development, but is still in the shelves since 2004. And we have other protocols that are important as well: fisheries, forestry, and wildlife conservation. And then the other thing is about the biannual review reports. We would like really to take this matter seriously in the SADC so that it can be reflected upon at the regional level, but also at the national level. Now, the last slide are the 7 recommendations. Number 1 is to call for the SADC member to fulfill the Malabo Declaration, the 7 goals that I've talked about. But the most important one is at least allocate more public financing. And my sister Chikondi talked about the future, that because of COVID now, probably agriculture is not going to receive much more attention, but it will be a consequence and they will pay for that if we don't really invest on the agriculture sector. But even if we invest 10%, we have to make sure that it's dispersed. It's not only about allocation and approval by the parliament, but it's to follow up and make sure that the same amount is timely dispersed and fully dispersed. That's why we don't see the growth in some countries. Agriculture is growing by negative. Now we would like also this biennial review report to be owned by all the parliaments in the regions so that it can be debated and taken seriously moving forward. And unfortunately, it came amid COVID, so everything, all the eyes on COVID. Number 3, we would love to see the operationalization of the Agriculture Development Fund. We are lagging behind as far as the agriculture development in the region is concerned. Very good policies, but moving nowhere. Of course, there are some gains, but we would like to see really we get out of the shame that we have 30 million people with malnutrition. Anyway, we have few countries that are overnutrition, South Africa and Botswana, but that is on the other side. Now, number 4, we have loved to see SADC members to adopt the gender-based right to food, nutrition framework in all future reviews of the SADC food and nutrition policies and strategies. So to speak, this is the food right issue is within the so-called SADC food and nutrition strategy. So it's a just of picking it and taking forward. And then number 5, as we spoke last year, we would have loved to see the Parliament forming the right to food and nutrition-based parliamentarians front against hunger in the SADC region. Just to pick from the Portuguese-speaking African countries, the PALO, but also in the Latin America. Number 6, we also encourage SADC regional strategy on agriculture extension because we don't have one. And extension is the key if we want to move forward agriculture sector. And we want to see this extension also supporting, as the chair said at the opening, the agroecology approaches at scale. Because we see this is a sustainable agriculture that does not even pollute water, does not destroy the soil, and does not kill other living things which are very important on agriculture. And then number 7, the need to develop and strengthen national and regional participatory joint agriculture sector review, the so-called joint agriculture sector review platforms, JASR. They are very important, and they could be a starting point as far as reviewing and appreciating and then planning and then re-strategizing in terms of agriculture in the region. We don't have any platform, and countries really are not performing very well as far as the joint agriculture sector review. And the secret for Rwanda, they are doing twice, not just once, twice, to review the performance and then plan ahead in the agriculture sector. Number 8, which is also important, and we are asking honorables to think of developing a model law on social accountability, because this will enhance transparency and the participation of all other stakeholders, including smallholder farmers, business communities, and government in moving forward development agenda. I beg to submit, Mr. Chair, with those 7 recommendations. We are not doing quite well in SADC. And next year, the bar is even going higher at 7 point something point. And the other year, it will go to 8. And the last one will be at 9%. So if we go with this pace, really, we can't achieve the Malabo. And the situation is dire in our countries. Thank you again, Chair. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mzinga, for such a wonderful presentation, even though it was a bit depressing when you look at it's quite depressing when you look at it. It's a wonderful presentation, but depressing presentation. Thank you very much. We really want to thank you for that presentation. Honorable members, we have received 2 presentations. I will afford honorable members to the opportunity to speak. We must also be mindful of time and also give space to each members, so that contribution must not be only one member that makes a contribution. I don't want to restrict minutes, but I think it will be important that for all member states to make a contribution. If we can have 3 minutes each, I think it will be fine. If we have another opportunity, we can then do another round again of the deliberations. On the participants there is if you press participants, there is raise your hand where you can raise your hand there. I have already seen the hand raised manually by Honorable Tumba. There is also an electronic raise your hand. In the electronic raise your hand, I see Honorable Musena. There is raise your hand. Honorable Tumba, I see you now. You have raised your hand electronically. You can start, Honorable Tumba. I also see Honorable Majaga, Honorable Carlos. You have also raised your hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I salute everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You can continue.
Yeah. First of all, I just need to thank you so much for this opportunity, and I thank our colleague for the presentation, which was very, very important actually. I have a little bit of observation, and I noticed that agriculture is very important actually, especially this time around when we have world pandemic. You know, people do lack of food actually. People have a difficulty to feed themselves because most of our food comes from overseas, China, Europe, so on and so forth. So my concern is, and I would like to underline this, say that it is going to be very important for the SADC region to come to solve the problem in order to have more SADC country region in order to perform the agriculture. In order to avoid, the reason is in order to avoid all the problem people, suffer now. Let me just give you one example of my constituency. Because people depending on the food coming from Kinshasa, which is the city. So now there's no plane between the big city to the village. Therefore, people suffer. There's no food actually. I need to underline, I need to pay attention to the SADC region in order to perform agriculture in the SADC region, in order to avoid other problems we might probably be facing now or maybe in the future. Thank you so much. I salute you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Majaga. You can unmute your mic. Your mic is still muted.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and God bless us all. Let me start by thanking the presenter and all committee members for us to have found this opportunity, unique time to be deliberating on this important issue in this era, like Honorable have been just alluded now, of this world pandemic which we are in. Actually, we as Africa or SADC region, we have been left behind. As we can see now, we are caught off time looking the situation we are in, because this agriculture is the way for development, meaning to say that if agriculture, we don't invest much in agriculture, we won't achieve anything, because a lot of our monies as a SADC region or Africa at large will be budgeting as respective countries. Then the money, all the money will be invested in agriculture because food is key. But then that's the time whereby now we must be having like food banks in our respective countries, knowing that there's a lot of maize in Zambia, for example, there's a lot of sugar in Eswatini, there's a lot of this. Instead, right now, because of this deadly pandemic, a lot of countries, including my country, Botswana, we used to import as far as Brazil, even other cereal foods. But now it's only South Africa and other countries which normally we find that we depend on, and like Zambia. So the reason why I'm raising this point is that actually as SADC, we must really put some fund and locate other countries whereby we can say, no, we invest heavily on Eswatini or South Africa and sugar. We invest heavily when it comes to maize and grains, Zambia and Zimbabwe. I just give you an example. Then we look in other countries. Then by so doing, we'll have like a food bank whereby we won't even using a lot of money to be investing in this time to be importing food. Food we're not supposed to be exporting. It's only a matter of us as SADC member states to have a workable plan which will end up making us to be self-sufficient and rather use those money maybe in medication. But now we are facing a lot of our money we invest in medication, and at the same time food, whereas we've got good and fertile soils, which those countries they could be now maybe using the sea to be coming and we export those to Europe and other countries. By so doing, I found this the Malabo Declaration and being of importance, especially at this juncture where we are faced with many challenges. Thank you, Master of Ceremony.
Thank you very much. Honorable Carlos Manuel. You can unmute there.
Obrigado.
Yeah, it's fine.
Obrigado, senhor. Acredito que o meu microfone esteja ligado, Sr. Presidente. Obrigado, senhor Presidente, por me conceder a palavra para participar neste debate. Excelências, meus pares, no que concerne ao tema desta sessão, pandemia Covid-19, tenho a informar que Moçambique registra neste momento 1.071 positivos, dos quais 337 recuperados e 8 mortes. A maior parte dos casos registram-se nas zonas da região norte do país, nomeadamente Nampula e Cabo Delgado, onde o índice de infecção é comunitário. Esforços estão sendo evitados pelo governo e vários intervenientes sociais e políticos para mitigar a situação. Neste âmbito, dizia eu, o governo de Moçambique já declarou 3 estados de emergência, estando o último em curso. O Parlamento moçambicano tem disseminado a informação através dos deputados nos respectivos círculos eleitorais e fiscalizado o trabalho do governo. Os deputados da Assembleia da República participam em spots televisivos e, falando em diversos idiomas, sensibilizam a população com vista a prevenir a pandemia. Em relação à segurança alimentar no país, no âmbito da Covid-19, Esforços estão sendo evitados no sentido de garantir produtos alimentares à população infectada. Dito isto, o meu muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente.
Thank you very much. Honorable Manuel, thank you very much. Honorable Musina, I see your hand was
Obrigado, Sr.
up. I don't know
Presidente.
whether it's still up. Honorable Musina.
Yes, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, my hand is still up. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the presenters for the brilliant presentations. Much as you've said, Chair, the last one is particularly depressing, but I think we take encouragement from the countries that are seemingly progressing, or rather in 2017 that were advancing, much as now in 2019 we see that the results are sort of we have a downward response. But in Lesotho this year we'll be conducting the agricultural survey. This is a year for the census, and I just wanted to ask, because the last presentation talked to countries neglecting or not providing information regarding their own domestic affairs, and me being a parliamentarian and obviously having to present this information to the other MPs, would there be any guidance on what specifically we should be looking for into the agricultural census so that it can feed properly into the Malabo responses? I just wanted to know if there's anything that we should be on the lookout for as a country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm still checking, honorable members, if there is any other member who has raised their hand before I can move to the Secretary General. Do we have any other member?
Not that I see, Chair.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I think one other, when Joe Mzinga responds, we need also to look at what are the strategies, because one area that I thought you touched, which is quite important, is the domestication of the Malabo Declaration in various parliaments.
Through you,
Yes.
there is Honorable Mohadi from Zimbabwe. Is raising a hand.
Okay. Honorable Mohadi.
Thank you very much, and greetings to you all. I would first and foremost want to thank the presenters who presented such a fruitful information about agriculture. As we are facing COVID-19, which has wreaked havoc in the countries as well as the global village, we are really left in wanting, as agriculture is the backbone of most of the SADC countries. And by having all these problems which has believed us, we found that our agriculture is getting very low. And as the presenters put it forward, you find that there's need for us to provide inputs and technology. But due to the COVID-19, which every country had no plan for it, all or most of the resources have gone to COVID-19. And as a result, our economies are shaking. I don't know how we can get a way forward, how we can resuscitate our economies, because each day they are going down. And the food has become very expensive. And most of the countries are living below the datum poverty line. And we can no more talk of nutrition food. We just eat what we come across. And there is need for us to provide food to our people. And the only way to provide food is to have money so that agriculture can be pushed forward. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Muhadi. I was saying to Joe Mzinga and the presenters, the area that I think we should look at, the issue of domestication of Malabo Declaration, and how can we also look at the opportunity of African continental free trade in line with the inputs that I got from Honorable Majaga as well as Honorable Tumba, in terms of how do we ensure that we align the African free trade, continental free trade, in terms of trading within our own countries.
Okay, yeah, I just copied them because I was having a bit of challenge to follow.
Okay. I was saying we need to look at the domestication of the...
I got the question.
You got it. Okay. As well as how do we align what Honorable Majaga put forward of us having our own food bank with the African continental free trade opportunity that is there, so that before we can even trade with other countries outside Africa and SADC, we're able to trade within ourselves as SADC countries. Yeah. There were some questions, Kurashia. I want Joe Mzinga to deal with that and the presenters before I hand over to the Secretary General.
The questions actually are from the Secretary General, so I need the guidance from the chair whether I read the questions now or we take them in the next round.
No, we can read them now because I'm just looking at the time.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So thank you, Chair. The question is that food has become expensive. Commercial farmers are struggling. There's a shortage of inputs, etc. How can parliaments advocate for creation of safety nets for the people they represent amidst the COVID-19 pandemic? What prospects does SADC have? Then the second question, Chair, is SADC presents a birth of contradiction. A young population endowed with natural resources, yet its population faces many vulnerabilities. High maternal and infant mortality rates, low life expectancy, dwindling revenue, high government expenditure, policy inconsistency, and many somersaults. In times of COVID, can our natural resources give birth to a pharmaceutical miracle? What can be done? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether Ms. Chavuta and Joe are still with us here. If they can respond on some of the issues before we, yeah.
I don't know, Chikondi, would you like to?
Yeah.
First?
Thanks, Joe. Let me go first because I'm seeing most of the questions were for your presentation. But just to kickstart the conversation, Thank you very much, honorable members, for the very brilliant suggestions, comments, and also the questions that have come forward. I'll just attempt to answer the question on what governments can do amidst COVID-19 to prioritize food. So what we are proposing, and this can be debated and also others can put in their suggestions, is one, we look at the issues that we have, the priorities that each country has, and the food situation that we have, and look at it with the COVID lens. So try to meet the needs of food insecurity, but looking at it with a COVID lens. How do we ensure that the most vulnerable are met with social protection and safety nets, but through a COVID lens, so that we have the transformative resilience that we're talking about? In this COVID era, we cannot pick and choose which emergency we choose, because we are already faced, as the chair explained at the beginning, we are already faced with other crises before COVID. So it's a matter of ensuring that as members of parliament, we still re-emphasize on the need to address those gaps while looking at it with a COVID lens. That's my attempt to answer that, Chair, but I'll leave Joe because the two other questions were specific for his presentation. Thank you very much.
Joe?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honorable, for contributions and recommendations and opinions as well. I noted Honorable Andre Tumba also talking about the issue of import, which is a key. We need to unpack more, do more research as far as how much money really we're spending import, and within the region, how can we do in terms of the region having complementarity as far as production of the good. The same came from Honorable Majaga, and the same also came from Honorable Manuel in the status and the need for food. And let me start with the COVID-19, and we see now countries came with different approach as far as the COVID-19 is concerned. And I think one way, and who is the biggest winner in all this, I think it will be in such institutional financial institution, international financial institutions. They are just going around and see an opportunity to lend money on the same. In some countries like South Africa, at the end, they were not very happy because the support delayed, and I could hear the Minister of Finance saying, no, but we are going to put our resources on this one. So I think the one that we see emerging issue of all these things is really, I can see a debt trap that is coming, and then probably if it's prolonged, the crisis as far as food is concerned. I don't know. We can't really predict, but probably chaos. If people are not food secure, anything can happen, and that's the most dangerous scenario that we can be afraid of. But the other scenario that we see is which kind of food that people are eating and moving forward. We heard from the WHO that you need to embrace the food that's boosting our immunity. Talked about red onions, talking about garlic, talking about lemons and so forth. Those food that's natural produced, which can really boost immunity. And then we were wondering why Europe now is embracing organic agriculture, and that's the way to go, because we have malnutrition in our countries, probably on the highest level in the world. It's only Burundi that's, I think, sorry to mention countries that we can beat in Africa, because they have about 56% of stunting and malnutrition at that level. But this is because of the agriculture that's probably we have taken. We focus more on carbohydrates more, not the other types of food, which could boost much more immunity, and the community could survive amid all those challenges. So I think we are what we eat, and we have to think critically if importation really is good for Africa or not good for Africa. But I think the way to go is to see how we can really invest, because the one who owns food is the master of this. We recall of those people of my age, 1973, when Mwalimu and Kaunda and Neto and Machel, they are struggling to for liberation. The way how USD came out and said, no, we are not going to provide food to Southern Africa. It was a big, big challenge, which I think is a lesson to learn as far as food is concerned. We need to be self-sufficient. We have, I think, fresh water, not like any other area in the world. We have rivers, we have fertile soil and everything, which we have to think in terms of production within our region moving forward. Now, specifically, there was an issue from Madam Sepang. I think we met even last year in Johannesburg on the agricultural census that is coming in. I think the challenge that we see more within all these things, really the cardiac person. I know someone called Kesa. There was a madam, I think no longer there, or maybe there. But I know a young man called Kesa. Maybe we link you with them. We have our member Esa Frisutu, which you could link, because the smallholder farmers are also struggling in terms of data. But we see this joint initiative as far as that is concerned. And when you're reporting to Malabo, because it's not only agriculture, you go to the health as well if you want to know about the stunting level and everything. But I think UNICEF has been pumping a lot of money in our countries to support initiative as far as data are concerned, particularly on nutrition on the youth. So the challenge that we see is there is no connection, no talking to each other in our countries. And I think the Bureau of Statistics, they are the one that really should be focusing. But generally, we are not doing well as far as that is concerned in the entire region. That's why even AU talked about the importance of having data. Yes, so we will find out and then link. I think all these things are connected to the 7 goals, as I said. Good governance is connected. There are how people are participating in policy processes in the agriculture sector. Number 2, in terms of financing, the Ministry of Finance has a stock, how much is dispersed. And then moving to malnutrition, hunger, having poverty. Again, everyone has a stock. To resilience and climate change, everyone has a stock. To trade, everyone has a stock, you see. And mutual accountability, which is the last goal. So I think this need to be connected in a way. And probably Rwanda is doing well because it's bringing all stakeholders all together twice a year, not like any other country in our region. The issue of domestication, I think this is very, very important because it will realign. But sometimes we discuss, we talk, we are very good in policies, but the challenge is on the implementation. Look at the protocols that we have within SADC. And this is my prayer, and moving forward, that I would have loved to see the people's representative, like the SADC PF, really finding a niche to enhance the accountability within the SADC itself. Last year, I think the chair went to Dar es Salaam to the summit, and there was a mention that we want to see a roadmap, how the SADC PF will be within the structure of SADC. And the study was done. Just go and ask the SADC Secretariat. This study was done as far how people want as far as the new structure of SADC that can work from the national level to the regional level. They are defunct, in fact. They are defunct in fact in our countries. So there is a need to domesticate the Malabo, which comes with the global SDGs, goal 1 and goal 2, in terms of ending poverty by ending hunger. Is it ending poverty? Ending hunger by 2030 and ending poverty by 2030 as well. having poverty by 2030 as well. Now it comes to SADC, it's come to African Union, where we have the Malabo within the Agenda 2063. And then it comes to our REX, where we have the Regional Agriculture Investment Plan, and then it goes to national level. And then in national level in some countries, I know the United Republic of Tanzania, we have even the investment plan at district level. But the big problem is implementation. So yes, indeed, Chair, as you are suggesting, domestication is very, very important. And having the Agriculture Development Fund operationalized is very, very important, but also having the SADC Development Fund also is very, very important. We are relying on the Western countries a lot, even for small things that we could do within our region. Madam Tambuzan, I don't know if I'm pronouncing quite correctly in terms of food. Yes, food is important, and the investment in agriculture is also very, very important. But also the issue of Africa Free Trade Area. Really, if you are not careful, this is another danger. Because by that time we are going to open, that if something comes through DRC, can go all the way to the other coast in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania and be sold. And the challenge will be, can we really, because sometimes you can be used like dumping if you're not careful moving forward. So really, this would be an eye-opener to say, what really Africa can benefit out of this, and not other countries coming to benefit out of our free trade area. There are those dynamics that we need to see and look and be prepared as Africans moving forward. The food reserve, yes. SADC, with the non-operational Regional Agriculture Investment Plan last year, they had almost half of it was on food reserve. It's just like the 4C. But this thing is not operational up to this time. And maybe no one is to ask really. No one can go and ask the Council of Ministers because those meetings are closed. But if we were there, you as people's representative, we could have come to you and say, hey, we have this. Why is this not implemented? We can't go and ask the Secretary General of SADC Secretariat. So that's the importance again to seeing the SADC PF becomes really a legislative and the voice of the people in the region. But we have a long way to go moving forward. Chair, let me submit there. I know there the issue of young population. Yes, SADC this year, last year, last year, they put in place a platform for youth, but also a platform for the private sector. But we have a long way to go in terms of bringing the youth's voice in all this transformation in the region moving forward. I thank you, Chair, and I submit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mzinga. You touched quite a number of areas that are quite interesting, that also require a lot of time to debate about. We really appreciate the inputs that we received from yourself. I'll check with the Secretary General if there is something she wants to say before we come to the close, because I check the time now. Yeah.
Through the chair, are you coming on board? Through the chair.
No, go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, there is Trudy from Tralac. They would be in a good position to just respond quickly to the question of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the impact on agriculture and food insecurity. I thought we could benefit from her since she's in the House, Chair.
Okay. She can come in.
Good afternoon, honourable members and SG. I've just joined you in this interesting conversation, and thank you so much for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion about the African Continental Free Trade Area and agriculture. This is, of course, taking on much more significance than 3, 4, 5 months ago under COVID, where food security now has come under the spotlight as a result of the pandemic. When we take a look at some of the issues that our honorable speaker raised, these are very legitimate when it comes to intra-Africa trade, but also the fact that we need to have mechanisms and procedures and measures to make sure that global traders do not come into our market and enjoy the preferences that we are negotiating with one another. The important issue there would be that when we take a look at the tariff liberalization, which we are negotiating amongst ourselves, and at this stage, we understand that about 11 member states have already submitted their initial tariff offers. So there are still a lot of member states that have to submit their tariff offers. And I think many are now reconsidering their tariff concessions that they're offering. And of course, particularly on agricultural products, because food security now has become even more of a priority than ever before under COVID. But equally important as far as the rules of origin are concerned are, of course, the tariffs are the rules of origin. And the rules of origin are really those rules that must be complied with to get access to the lower tariffs. And they are the instrument we use to prevent the transshipment from global suppliers into our markets at the lower rates which we as members of the AFCFTA have negotiated. So this is what we have to look at very carefully. It is important the rules of origin will be implemented by our customs and revenue officers at the borders. So we need to start training our officers. This is an absolute priority in the rules of origin that will be applicable under the AFCFTA, so that when goods do arrive at the border post for entry into our domestic markets, we can check and be absolutely sure about the origin of those goods. So honorable members and chair and SG, I think these are really important issues that even now, before the negotiations are complete, our member states need to start preparing for the implementation of the AFCFTA. We also need to keep in mind, of course, that the African Continental Free Trade Area is a flagship project of the African Union, and CARDIP is another very important flagship program, long-standing one. There are many others, AIDA, about industrial development, and this is where we need to look at the synergies that we need to develop in terms of leveraging the AFCFTA to develop our agricultural production capacity, but also to add value to the agricultural products. So develop the agro-processing so that we actually see agriculture and industrial development linked through such support programs. So, Chair, I think these are really important issues that we must address now, even before we start trading under the AFCFTA. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Trudy, for that contribution. Thank you very much. It assists us a lot. Secretary General.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for those brilliant presentation and for the good input that we've got from the membership and our experts. I needed to just add that we will be having a session, 2 webinars on the 14th and 15th on the implications of the AFTCA, of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So the members of the committee are invited. We will share the flyers with you so that you could participate and bring forward some of these issues. These are done in collaboration with TRALAC, and Ms. Trudy Hazenbeck will be there to actually answer most of the questions and give us much more detail. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Kurasha. We are moving towards the conclusion. Are you still there, Kurasha?
Yes, Chair, I am.
Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Can you be able to flag the recommendations there or flight them or just go through them?
Chair, thank you very much. Chair, the main issues that came out from the meeting is the fact that the restrictions inspired by COVID, much as they are meant to secure health and safety, have had a negative impact on the agricultural sector through the disruptions of the value chains. And this has consequences in terms of the current and future production capacities. Another important aspect that came on board, Chair, is that the COVID comes in where there are already existing challenges in the agricultural sector. And for instance, in the last 5 years alone, we have had El Nino, issue of erratic rains, we have had cyclones, flooding, pest infestations and droughts, all with a negative impact on agriculture. And in terms of the interventions that are required, in the most immediate, there is need to look at creating safety nets, to cater for those that are vulnerable. There's also need to think of subsidizing inputs to facilitate in particular small-scale farmers to be able to buy food, buy seeds, and fertilizer and other inputs. The other important resolution as Chair is that there is concern when you look at the SADC region in terms of the slow pace at which we have responded, or member states have responded to some of the existing commitments, such as the SADC Agricultural Development Fund. 7 members having only signed at initiation, and the operationalization hasn't done, and that limits a region-wide and region-coordinated response to agricultural development. And this put against the last point that was raised of the potential risk of transshipment that could happen in the agricultural sector with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area becoming operational. The other important issue is the slow pace with which member states are also performing with regards to domestication of the commitment or operationalization of the commitments in the Malabo Declaration, with facts and figures showing that our countries, the SADC region, is really a mixed bag with very slow pace being the overall picture in terms of implementation. There also was an issue of proposal on what Parliament could do across the issues that we highlighted. And one of the recommendations that stood out, Chair, is the issue of the prospective development of a model law on social accountability in order to strengthen accountability within the developmental agenda in the SADC region. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That was the summary of the recommendations after the deliberations. I want to take this opportunity to thank the honorable members for our participation and engagements. Also thank the presenters, Joe Mzinga and Ms. Chikondi Chavuta, as well as other participants, and Trudy, the Secretary General, as well as those who are assisting us in the interpretations section. We we are going to adjourn this session. Tomorrow, we must make sure, honorable members, we join early so that we don't join when the deliberations have already occurred. We are starting at 9:30 tomorrow. It's quite early, and in some areas like South Africa, it's winter. We're still very cold, and the cold front is moving across our region here. Let's make sure that we join at least 10 minutes before the time, so that if there are any technical glitches, we're able to deal with that. Thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting stands adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. And honorable members, we use the same link to join tomorrow's meeting, the same link that was generated into our emails when we registered.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gurasha.
Thank you, Honorable Margaret.
Thank you, Gurasha.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.